Hello. Yesterday I posted a video saying that I was going to do a series on tremolo technique, and this is the first in that series. Rather than look at the tremolo pattern itself today, I'll cover that in part 2. I'm going to look at something that might be thought of as a preliminary to that, which is strengthening the weak part of the right hand. As you know, in the left hand, all 4 fingers are used, and we tend to do quite a lot of extra work on the 3rd and 4th fingers because that part of the hand is naturally weak. The hands are, of course, made to pick things up and grip, and since we're babies, we learn to use the thumbs and forefingers, picking things up, holding a knife and fork and the like. So that part of the hand gets developed in the ordinary course of daily life, but the weak part of the hand doesn't. And the requirements of modern repertoire, the technical requirements of modern repertoire are such that all 4 fingers need to be used quite equally. I mean, they have to be equally reliable. So all 4 fingers need to be strong. The hand needs to be strong. But in the right hand, as most of you watching this video will know, the pinky isn't used to pluck the string in standard classical guitar technique. And whilst there are some advocates of incorporating that finger into standard technique, that is still very much a minority position. And it's one that I'm not here to advocate or to criticize. It may well happen in time, but certainly I've been taught the standard technique of PIMA, and the pinky tends to be used in Rasgueados. Strumming patterns in the Spanish style, which incidentally are a great way of strengthening the weaker part of the hand, and that's something I may do a video on at some point. But today I'd like to suggest that you do start to pluck the string with the pinky, but not in terms of how you're using the fingers in the repertoire, pieces that you're playing, but in the context of technical exercises. And you can do this largely with the exercises that you already know. And to use as an example, I'm going to take a couple of exercises from Giuliani's 120 right hand studies. I'm going to keep it simple today and do numbers 2 and 3. Many of you watching this video will be aware of Giuliani's 120 right hand studies. It's really 120 right hand arpeggio patterns. It's very well worthwhile studying. And if you don't have the music or are unaware of it, you can look in the description below, and there's a link to IMSLP where an old edition from perhaps from Giuliani's time is available to download perfectly legally and for free. If you have the wonderful technique book Pumping Nylon by Scott Tennant, you'll find all 120 right hand patterns there, and I'll put a link to Pumping Nylon below, a place where you can buy that very worthwhile book. But getting to the studies themselves, I'm going to look at, as I say, number 2. And number 2, with the normal fingering, the fingering in that Giuliani wrote into the music, would go like this. It's PIM. That, of course, has to be practiced. The planting technique, maybe another video on planting technique will be done at some point. But it's fine. That obviously works very well. But interestingly, In Giuliani's time, the A finger wasn't used as much. I mean, Giuliani did use it, but in Saw, for example, it's hardly used at all. Only in four note chords. So perhaps that's why the A finger is somewhat neglected in that exercise. Although later on in the 120, there are patterns which require the A finger, so it is used. Giuliani clearly could use it very well. But I always thought as a basic minimum, that pattern should be also practiced with PMA. I thought, well, the A is getting neglected. But you can go one step further and practice it with P, A, and then the pinky, sometimes referred to as C or E. Now don't be alarmed at the inferior tone that finger produces. I keep a very long nail on that finger for Rasgueados, and I'm not, because I don't pluck with it in the ordinary context, and when playing pieces, I don't really mind that it's a thin sound. You do want to, of course, make sure that you produce a strong sound with it, so that the finger is being it works sufficiently hard. And if we look at number 3 from the 120 right hand studies, using that finger, it would go like this. And again, try and use the planting technique that you would use ordinarily. Try and when doing this, treat the little finger as you would the others. Maybe tone accepted. Other things you can do to build up strength in the pinky would be things like repeated note exercises. So if you ever practice speed bursts, that kind of thing, well, you can practice that also with the pinky. And don't be worried if you can't go quite as fast. And that was using the index finger and the pinky. You can, of course, use the middle and the pinky. And then much harder, but perhaps worthwhile, the A finger and the pinky. And I need to go a bit slower for that. Likewise, you can practice scales with the pinky, using any of the combinations I've already mentioned. So here we have the two standard sides of the right hand technique coin, arpeggios across the strings, and then melodic stuff on one string, or at least playing a few notes, single line stuff, one string at a time. Of course, crossing, string crossing as well. So that covers quite a lot of bases. If you incorporate the pinky into those areas of practice, you'll probably find it does yield a return. Obviously, I mentioned also practicing Rasgueado patterns, and that is a great way of preparing for tremolo. Just to maybe quickly cover one, a great pattern for that, because it uses all fingers, is the pinky, the A finger, the middle finger, and the index finger. If you do that continuously, there I was covering the G string and only flicking onto the top two strings. And to do that, you need to tuck the fingers into that sort of thumb muscle there very, very lightly. In fact, my pinky doesn't actually touch anything there, and the other three fingers are very, very, very lightly against that muscle, and that's just to allow the fingers to flick out. And that's a preliminary exercise also for the continuous 5-note Rasgueado pattern. Where the index finger comes back. But when practicing it very slowly, you don't need to worry about that. Simply is good enough. Just note that when practicing Rasgueado like that, there should be a slight relaxation of the fingers as you go through the pattern. Like that, so that the pinky is back to where it started, and that's how you can get the pattern to be continuous. But that's perhaps a separate point. If you're going to practice it though, it's worth doing well, and I will do a detailed video on that quite separate technique another time. But for now, that should get you started on strengthening the little finger of the right hand, and I would suggest maybe doing that for a couple of weeks before beginning the actual tremolo pattern itself. If you already play and can do tremolo basically, and you're just looking to improve it, then carry on, but perhaps incorporate this sort of thing into your practice. Well, for now, all the best. If you enjoyed this or found it helpful, please do like, subscribe and share, and I look forward to seeing you very soon.